Medical doctors often say the most important thing is to keep weight on a cancer patient. They wouldn't recommend fasting. But we know fasting has many, oh so many health benefits. So is it okay or good for a cancer patient to do a 4 to 5 day fast? In this video, I will answer this question and many others you may have about this fascinating topic. Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa, and I help those with cancer navigate their inner journey towards health and wellness on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, and spiritually. And today's video was actually inspired by a recent fast that I did. I had just done a 4.5 day fast, ended on Friday, and I finally got to eat real food Sunday, which was a glorious day. So, anyways, there are a lot of educated assumptions by medical doctors about fasting and cancer. Like, it can't possibly be a good thing, as we need to keep weight on the cancer patient, we need to make sure they don't lose weight, and they need all the nutrition that is available to them. But there's much research that proves otherwise. So, to answer this question simply, yes. It is not only safe, but very good to do a 4 to 5 day fast for cancer prevention or treatment, as long as you are not underweight. You can do a BMI calculation to determine this. And also, it's not recommended if you have metastasis. Oh, definitely not recommended if you have cachexia, or if you have metastasis if your liver is not strong. Now, if you have metastases and your liver is strong, then it's okay. But it's when the liver is compromised that it's not advisable. And this also can be determined with labs. So other contraindications to fasting, as well as the fasting mimicking diet, which we'll get into later, just in case you have other health conditions as a cancer patient. So shouldn't do it if you have diabetes type 1, type 2, liver disease, advanced heart disease. Like we said, if you're underweight, under BMI weight, underweight according to BMI, or under 100 pounds. If you're over 70, under 18, have a history of an eating disorder, pregnant, breastfeeding, those sorts of things. So, why, oh why, would we do a fast, especially during cancer? So, it has been shown that high protein diets lead to great increased cancer risk. Now, high protein diet is considered 20 or more percent of the total calories you get. That leads to cancer. Of course, high calorie diets can also lead to cancer. They tend to be high carb, which is typically high sugar or leads to sugar in the body, which also promotes cancer. So it is really good to give your body a break from this. It does help to starve the cancer out. It creates a tumor microenvironment that is low glucose, low growth factors, high ketone bodies, all that kind of good stuff. It suppresses the cancer and puts the body's energy towards fighting the cancer and healing rather than at digesting, which takes so much of our body's energy. So if you're a science nerd that wants to know more about how exactly this happens, so basically what it's doing is it's suppressing the mTOR pathway. The mTOR pathway is one of our most ancient cell signaling pathways. And by suppressing this pathway, suppressing IGF-1, we are promoting cell autophagy, which is when the good cells are, eating and taking care of the bad cells, taking out the trash, if you will. And it also increases healthy stem cell differentiation, which is good. This is repair, DNA repair, tissue repair, organ repair, that sort of stuff. And this also leads to increased lifespan and all kinds of good stuff. And then resulting from all this is decreased oxidation and damage, increased cellular regeneration, decreased inflammation, I think was said, DNA repair, optimized energy metabolism, bolstered cellular protection, all kinds of really good stuff, and detox, which is always good to do a detox when you have cancer anyway. This is a great detox thing. And we're not talking about juice fasts. That is a type of fast. That's more of a type of cleanse. It's not really a true fast. That's not what we're talking about here. And this is all stuff supported by research, by the way, trials. And then there's anecdotal evidence that supports people saying they have more energy, enhanced mood, decreased pain, decreased inflammation, and better cognition as well. All kinds of benefits. And I'm not even going to really get into all the benefits of fasting. This is like more specific to fasting in cancer. So it is proven to reduce the rate of tumor growth, and it causes tumor regression. Yes, this is very big. This is very cool. It also enhances the efficacy of chemo and radiation, and protects from its side effects. And there's some evidence that also suggests fasting can help certain immunotherapy drugs work better as well. And it reduces blood toxicity and promotes recovery of the immune system. So this is great. So the thing is, each mutation that cancer cells undergo makes them easier to survive and adapt to a normal environment, standard conditions, our body. But each mutation makes it worse and harder for them to survive in harsh, extreme conditions, such as fasting. This is key. And yeah, there's like I said, there's a lot of research on this, which is a higher standard than anecdotal, but really it's so cool to see this work in person. I have seen a lot of patients benefit from fasting during chemo. It really helps negate the side effects. It helps them tolerate it. It's really great. So how do we do this? How long and how often? So in general, if we're doing a fast for prevention, I would say and this is based not just on my opinion, but evidence, a 4-day fast seasonally. So let me make this clear. If we're just preventing cancer, maybe you have a strong family history or something, you've never had cancer, but you want to prevent it, I recommend a 4-day water herbal tea fast seasonally. But if you had cancer and you want to prevent its recurrence, so you've already had it, got rid of it, don't want it to come back, then I suggest a 5-day water herbal tea fast seasonally. Although there is evidence that show just twice a year is good enough for these 4 to 5 day fasts. But I still like seasonally. I'm a little extra, cautious, but also it's a really cool practice to do seasonally. For one, it kind of reminds you when to do it, the coming of spring, summer, fall, winter, and it's a good time to cleanse as we prepare for these new times and energies of the year. Just doing a cleanse like this, it can just sort of be like a really cool spiritual practice to add in as well, that of course has a lot of health benefits too. Now if you have cancer now, so fasting during cancer, so that's going to be variable. It's really going to depend on your tolerance and your weight and things like that, whether you're doing conventional treatment or not. If you're not doing conventional treatment, I would say to do the 5-day fast. Can do it more often than seasonally, because if you actively have cancer, I would say monthly is probably too much, but you could do it every other month while you have cancer, as long as the conditions are being met. You're not underweight, your liver's okay, that sort of thing. And if you are doing conventional treatment, if you're doing chemo or radiation, there's more evidence with chemo than radiation, but it is good for both. Then I would say there are safety studies that show you can do up to a 72-hour fast safely, and it is recommended to do it around the time of infusion. So I'll talk about chemo. So basically what you would typically do is do a 24-hour fast before the chemo infusion, and then obviously during the infusion you wouldn't eat anything, and then 24 hours after the infusion. And there's lots of evidence on this showing it really does help for the treatment itself to be more targeted towards the cancer, not just the whole body, and therefore you also get a lot more well, your organs get a lot more protection and you get a lot less side effects. So yeah, and with this type of chemo fasting, this is best for like a 3-week chemo cycle. Now, if you have a 2-week cycle, you can still try this method, just be more cautious, get more monitoring by your healthcare professionals. Or some modifications can be made and it can be, adjusted, shortened, that sort of thing. Now, if you are on a chemo cycle that is basically longer than this, if you're on long bouts of chemo, this may not be feasible. This tactic will not be feasible for you, but there are other options, things like intermittent fasting, caloric restriction, even the ketogenic diet can have similar effects and some of these benefits I mentioned. So what can you ingest? So basically these fasts that I'm talking about here are water fasts. So water, and of course you want high quality water. Herbal tea counts as water, not tea with caffeine. Herbal tea, not green tea, not black tea. White tea has small amounts of caffeine, as does oolong, but mostly we want to stay away from the caffeinated teas. It's okay to do some electrolytes as needed if you really need them. You can do some electrolytes, of course, preferably with no other additives and stuff like that. Try to be sparingly. I'm more of a purist, so I like to just sort of emphasize water, herbal tea, electrolytes if absolutely needed. But in the research, though, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that doing up to 25 calories a day is okay. Now, that's still a very small amount of calories, and to me, it matters where those calories come from. Like, if you're just going to get those from a not good source, then what's the point? But typically, the 25 calories a day source recommended would be things like broth, vegetable broth, bone broth. That would be fine. Or even coconut oil can help speed along ketogenesis without compromising the fasting state. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to get to in a fasting state, is ketogenesis. That's more towards fat burning after we have utilized the carb burning. So yes. Now, with the water consumption, I mentioned the quality of water matters. The amount is very important too. So typically, just on an average day, the amount of water you want to get is, so if take your weight in pounds, and then half of that number is how many ounces you should drink on an average day. But when you're fasting, you need more because of all the physiological processes that are happening inside your body. You need more water, so you actually need 1 ounce per pound. So say you weigh 150 pounds, you need 150 ounces of water during a fast. Yes, you do need this, like I said, because a lot more water is lost during these physiological processes. Also, it's good because it helps give the detox an extra kick to flush toxins out your system. And then drinking all that water kind of makes you feel full, so it helps the hunger effect as well. With chemo fasting, there is a stronger emphasis in between the fasting on very nutritionally dense, high protein meals to aid recovery in between cycles. And let me tell you, if this is sounding kind of difficult and daunting and whatnot, I totally understand. I did my first fast, this is a couple years ago, but I really did not think I could do it. I mean, I have a good amount of self-discipline, but I love food. I love food. It is one of my pure joys and loves of life. I look forward to it every day, so trust me, I understand like what food brings to your day, more than just sustenance sometimes, just pure joy. So of course it's hard to give up, but it is a good practice in self-discipline. You will actually notice it's really the first 2 days that are hard. Day 1 and day 2 are kind of the hardest. Some people say day 1's the hardest because that's where most of the hunger comes in as your body's used to eating and it's like, where's my food? The second day, it does a little bit of that, not as much, but you can start to feel, if your body's really toxic, you'll feel pretty bad. You might get some headaches and that sort of thing as toxins are flushed through. But by day 3, if you're doing like a 4 to 5 day fast, by day 3 you typically feel you're kind of used to it and you're not really hungry anymore. And honestly, a lot of people get that energy burst day 3 or 4. They start feeling good and their mind's clear. So there are these benefits. But also, it's not as hard as you might think. It does get easier as the days go on, and then it also gets easier each fast that you do. It does get easier. But just, yeah, it's just that initial resistance to get through. If I can do it, you can do it. But there's other benefits as well. I mean, you get to give yourself a little more nurturing time, as you can't do anything strenuous. So you get to like really kind of pamper yourself. And you kind of realize your psychological connection with food, because there's really not like a physical hunger response after the first couple days. Any sort of desire you might have to eat after that is purely psychological, so it can really show you if that exists within you and where that might be coming from. And so it sheds some awareness on you as well, which is always a great gift. And speaking of gift, it really does help gratitude as well, because you become so, unfortunately it happens these ways in retrospect a lot, where we realize once something is gone what we had. So once you have food in your life again, it really does foster some gratitude for those simple things and for the simple foods, because the first time after fast, when you drink that broth or that smoothie, it is going to taste so wonderful. It is going to be like the best thing you ever had. You'll be amazed at how good food tastes after a fast. And if you are going through chemo or something like that, it might be surprisingly easy for you anyways, because you might have, like if you already started the chemo, you might have a low appetite and be nauseated anyways, or cancer can give you a low appetite, so you might not have those kinds of problems that a lot of people have anyway. So I just wanted to share that. And then preparing and weaning. So it's also important not just what to not eat during a fast, but what to eat before and after. So, if you're doing a longer fast, a couple days beforehand is when you want to stop any sort of processed foods, high starch foods, heavy foods, fried foods, that sort of thing, which, you really probably shouldn't be eating anyways if you have cancer. But you want to start transitioning to lighter foods, more whole foods based foods. You can stop meat and dairy these couple days before, that sort of thing. And yeah, just start eating lighter foods, vegetables, healthy fats. And then the day before fast, transition to even lighter food, more easily digestible foods, softer foods, that sort of thing. And then weaning off from a fast is even more important, because you can't just start eating whatever you were eating right away, as much as your appetite might want it. So you break a fast typically with broth. Vegetable broth is good. You can do bone broth. And then you want, fruits are very easily digestible. So I know it's not recommended to do too many high glycemic foods during cancer, but for breaking a fast, they're very digestible, easily digestible. So it's okay to do a little fruit smoothie. Try to use fruits that are, lower glycemic. So soft things such as that, like pureed soups, homemade soups, pureed. You'll want to do soft foods like that for the first about 2 days. Softer things, you can add yogurt, the second day. And then after, even a little before 2 days after, you could start adding in like salads and things like that after 2 days after the fast. 2 days post-fast is when you can start adding in the things that are harder on the digestive system. Protein, nuts, seeds, if you do meat, dairy, that sort of thing. And then there is, people are wondering about intermittent fasting. You may be wondering about intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting does not have the same benefits that I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, but it does have some. It is good to do all the time, honestly, because intermittent fasting is something you can do daily. It also is good to do if you have cancer. Intermittent fasting more than 13 hours has been studied in breast cancer patients and shown to improve breast cancer outcomes by 36%. That's huge. So you might be wondering, what exactly is intermittent fasting? There's a lot of ways you can do intermittent fasting. This was the one I just mentioned with the study, improving breast cancer outcomes by 36%. The fasting window was more than 13 hours. So the fasting window is basically the last thing you ingest for the night. That's not water or herbal tea. You time that till the next thing you eat the next morning. Well, anything you ingest the next morning, or whenever you eat next, that's the next day, the following day. That's not water or herbal tea. You count that time. And anything over 12 hours is considered intermittent fasting. I think the sweet spot is 16 hours. That's what I aim for personally, is 16. So you're only eating during an 8-hour window per day. But this study just showed those great benefits just with over 13 hours, 13 or more. And intermittent fasting does help glucose regulation, insulin sensitivity, inflammation, and those are big things that help with cancer. But it doesn't do the cell autophagy, and it doesn't do the stem cell stuff. So yeah, it also prevents or delays Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and heart attacks. And helps weight loss and blood pressure. It does do a lot of good stuff. And then there's the fasting mimicking diet. Ooh, what is that? So it's kind of a funny thing. So the fasting mimicking diet, they're typically created by companies because the measurements of things have to be very precise. They're like prepackaged things you can get from companies because the measurements have to be pretty precise. Very low calorie, very low carb, very low protein, and higher fat. And it's interesting because there have been several studies done on this diet, and it does show that it is similar to an actual like 4 to 5 day fast. It does hit that mTOR pathway. It suppresses that mTOR pathway, so it increases cell autophagy. That's the good cells eating the bad cells, you know, the DNA repair, that kind of stuff. The stem cells differentiation, it does all that good stuff apparently, which is kind of surprising to me, but that's what the research shows. So if you think you don't have the willpower, although I do challenge you to, you know, see, we all can access that power within us. But the fasting mimicking diet is available for those who maybe it's just, maybe this is a good place to start. You know, a fast can seem like too much. So this fasting mimicking diet is available, and it has been, like I said, studied pretty well. A Harvard team even agreed that starting a fasting mimicking diet at age 50 and doing it twice yearly can add 15 years to your life. And it does show really good things for cancer prevention, which are things like 45% reduction in neoplastic incidences. The number of animals in animal studies with abnormal lesions was 300% higher in the group that did not do the fasting mimicking diet. It reduces tumor cell inflammatory cytokines, and also protects against the side effects from chemotherapy. So it's been studied for cancer prevention, but in theory it should also be good for cancer treatment if it does similar things to a 4 to 5 day fast. So how can this info help you? Well, hopefully I provided you some inspiration and some education, but if you plan on undertaking any of this yourself, I recommend seeking the help of a healthcare professional. So you could search in your area for people like naturopathic doctors, if you don't have licensed naturopathic doctors, naturopaths, naturopathic health consultants, nutritionists, dietitians, maybe even functional medicine doctors or integrative medical doctors, health coaches. You just have to call around and check the holistic areas and holistic things and ask them if they have expertise in fasting, particularly fasting and cancer, because not all of those that I mentioned necessarily will. So call around and see who can help you. It definitely is something that I advise to get some one-on-one help with. And when in doubt, you can always seek me out. I am a fasting coach as well. You can find my website in the description name, and also you can find a link to Prolon, which is a company that I feel is trustworthy for the fasting mimicking diet if you are interested in something like that. And they can also link you with health professionals that are familiar with it. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I would love if you left a comment and told me your experiences with fasting, or if you're inspired to take this on, anything like that. Don't forget to subscribe and all that good stuff. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.